I'm Maya Trotz, Professor of Civil and Environmental Engineering at the University of South Florida. I'm currently the President of the Association of Environmental Engineering and Science Professors. Community engagement is something that I value. It's something that I do, I think, in my research and in my teaching. And it's something that my colleagues at the University of South Florida in environmental engineering, it's something that I think we definitely take to heart and are trying very hard to train our students to be community engaged researchers. We've partnered with colleagues in anthropology to co-create classes and to do interdisciplinary research that goes beyond our academic gates, our classrooms. We work with communities, developing partnerships with them, with the hope that we co-create knowledge with them, addressing some of the challenges, the grand challenges that we are faced with in society. And this is something that environmental engineering, our profession, this is something that I think our association has worked on recently, very hard. Members of the association, three ex-presidents actually, created a series of workshops across the U.S., getting faculty input on what they think the grand challenges are for environmental engineering. This is something that was funded by the National Science Foundation, funding to the National Academy of Science, Engineering, and Mathematics that then used those information from those workshops, got a team together to sort of review other literature, conduct more sort of hearings, and come up with a report that they released in December 2018 called Environmental Engineering for the 21st Century, Addressing Grand Challenges. And those challenges are sustainably supply food, water, and energy, curb climate change and adapt to its impacts, design a future without pollution or waste, create efficient, healthy, resilient cities, foster informed decisions and actions. And then the ultimate challenge for environmental engineering was preparing the field to address a new future. And I'll just read a little on this ultimate challenge. It says, today's environmental engineers work within complex, interconnected systems, often in the context of competing demands for agriculture, industry, people, and ecosystems. Environmental engineers need to work collaboratively with interdisciplinary partners, engage the public in the development of solutions. In most cases, there is no single answer that works for all communities, and solutions may need to be adapted over time. Environmental engineers need to examine the challenges and the alternative solutions using community input and considering short and long-term consequences across local, regional, and global scales. This idea of how important it is to work with the public, work with communities, is something that dates back, I think, to 1914. And it's in the Code of Ethics of the American Society of Civil Engineers. Canon 1 is this idea of holding safety paramount. Part of it says that engineers should recognize that the lives, safety, health, and welfare of the general public are dependent upon engineering judgments, decisions, and practices incorporated into structures, machines, products, processes, and devices. I think ASCE recently, in adopting Envision certification for sustainable infrastructure, which has as one of its criteria, quality of life, and many different pieces on there talk about impact to communities, which really, if you're going to do infrastructure projects and you're going to do them in a way that really serve the people who you're doing them for, there needs to be a lot more community engagement, not just after a feasibility study has been done or something like that. From the beginning, the community needs to be involved so that the identification of the problem is something that everyone is sort of in agreement on. Because you might come up with a totally different infrastructural project or a different solution to something. And in 2017, ASCE released a new canon, Canon 8, and it says, treat all persons fairly. And this one aligns also with the National Science Foundation's, one of their 10 big ideas on this idea of diversity. But this canon says, engineers shall, in all matters related to their profession, treat all persons fairly and encourage equitable participation without regard to gender or gender identity, race, national origin, ethnicity, religion, age, sexual orientation, disability, political affiliation, or family, marital or economic status. Engineers shall conduct themselves in a manner in which all persons are treated with dignity, respect, and fairness. They shall consider the diversity of the community and shall endeavor in good faith to include diverse perspectives in the planning and performance of their professional services. So as an engineer or an engineer in training who is in our classrooms, this idea of really working with people because the solutions that you're coming up with are really, in the end, to protect their safety, at least if you're a civil and environmental engineer. A recent discussion on Twitter emphasizes the point that protecting the safety of human health means that there is protection. You have to consider health of the environment, health of non-humans, and so it's really this concept of one health that we need to be concerned with. I hope this is useful or helpful, especially to engineers who may not be in environmental engineering. Our field, when we look at this idea of diversity, is one in engineering at least that has higher percentages or the highest percentage of female representation from undergraduate all the way up to faculty levels. Chemical engineering and environmental engineering, I have to check the latest numbers, but they may compete on gender. In terms of other types of diversity issues, representation of Black or African American, Hispanic, underrepresented groups, so those that are underrepresented in the field of engineering or in the entire field of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So the numbers, the percentages in those fields at the levels don't reflect what is seen in the U.S. population or in the job market. So that there's a report that just came out on this from the National Science Foundation, released just last week, I think. And it's useful to look at those numbers. I mentioned recently online that as a Black female engineering faculty, those numbers are extremely depressing. Not sure how we will really keep Black women in engineering. The numbers show that we have decreasing numbers at the bachelor's level for female enrollment. AESP, this is the organization that I'm a part of, colleagues have been doing reports, papers, so they published 2 papers looking at data in our field, and the numbers in terms of representation at the faculty level for people who look like me are extremely low. When you compare the percentages of Black women to Black men in STEM fields, we're higher in terms of numbers. So what does that mean for relationships, for Black families? As a Black faculty member, putting all of these together over the last couple of days, it's sort of, if this is one of NSF's 10 big ideas, we're not solid. We haven't. It's something that needs attention, and it's something that we need to put our heads to, and it's something that a lot of us are affected by issues in communities around where we work that look like us. That in Tampa, for example, this idea of gentrification is now hitting. This idea of loss of property to highway expansion is something that we've been dealing with, or I've been dealing with since 2015. The community's been dealing with it for decades. And so these things are not easy if you are a Black engineering faculty member watching communities that look like you deal with issues of environmental justice, which are infrastructural injustices caused by the same field that I'm a part of, that says the first canon is you hold safety paramount. So hopefully we can have some honest and open discussions on why around our universities communities of color suffer, have suffered, and do not make it into our classrooms or into our faculty meetings as faculty members. I must admit that this last semester, my department, the faculty there did hire one faculty member, a black male assistant professor who is from Tampa and went through the public school system in Tampa. So I'm really excited about that, because I think if we were to really look into these issues on why we're not seeing this translation into graduate school and into academia from the communities in the U.S. of color, we have to go back to K through 12, and we have to look at what's going on in our schools and our communities. I'm doing this actually from Milan.